Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a moment to sit with the idea of being dangerously anointed. It's not just a phrase, it's a call to awareness, a recognition that there is something extraordinary within you, but also something profoundly challenging about carrying it. When you're anointed in a way that shakes the room, moves mountains, or awakens souls, it's not all glory and applause. It can be messy. It can be lonely. It can make you question yourself. Yet it can also make you unstoppable. But let's be real, stepping into this kind of power isn't easy. It's scary. It's vulnerable. You'll question, why me, or how can I handle this? And yet, here's the truth. When you are dangerously anointed, the world doesn't just see you. It feels you. Today, I want to explore 5 key signs that you're walking in this space. Not to scare you, but to remind you that if you resonate with these, you're not alone and you're not here by accident. Let's talk about comfort zones. They're warm, they're cozy, and they're predictable. Comfort zones feel safe because they are safe, they're familiar, structured, and most importantly, they don't demand much from us. But here's the thing, nothing transformative ever happens there. When you are dangerously anointed, you're not just invited to leave your own comfort zone, you are called to challenge the comfort zones of others. That's part of the weight you carry. It's not about being disruptive for the sake of it or creating chaos without purpose. It's about seeing the potential in people, systems, and situations that others can't or won't just see. Think about it. Challenging comfort zones means asking the hard questions no one else dares to ask. It means standing in the middle of a situation where everyone else is playing it safe and saying, what if we tried this another way? It means being willing to be the person who shakes the room not because you want attention, but because you want growth. But here's the catch, most people don't want their comfort zones challenged. Why? Because comfort zones protect us from fear, from vulnerability, from failure. So when you step into a space and start questioning the status quo, you might not be welcomed with open arms. People might resist you. They might label you as too much, too bold, or even too different. That's when it gets lonely. But let me tell you something important. Just because people are uncomfortable doesn't mean you're wrong. Growth requires discomfort. Transformation requires disruption. Think about a caterpillar in its cocoon. It's a messy, painful process to become a butterfly. The cocoon was comfortable, but it wasn't where the story was supposed to end. And here's where it gets personal. Being called to challenge comfort zones doesn't mean you're exempt from confronting your own. Yes, it's easier to see where others are stuck, but part of being dangerously anointed is recognizing that you, too, have comfort zones you cling to. The places where you've settled, the habits you've outgrown, the fears you haven't fully faced. Challenging comfort zones is as much about self-awareness as it is about leadership. It's about being willing to say, I can't stay here, even if here feels safe, and it's about modeling that courage for others. So what does this look like in practice? It looks like stepping into conversations no one else wants to have because they're too hard. It looks like taking risks when everyone else is playing small. It looks like showing up with authenticity even when it's easier to fit in. It looks like being okay with being misunderstood because you know the work you're doing matters. And here's the most beautiful part. When you challenge comfort, let's unpack what it means to feel both magnified and misunderstood. These two things don't seem like they should go together, right? Magnification sounds like being seen, celebrated, and even revered. Misunderstanding, on the other hand, feels isolating, like being unseen or misjudged. But when you are dangerously anointed, these two experiences coexist, often at the same time. And it's not an easy tension to hold. Being magnified means your presence is amplified. People notice you before you even say a word. Your actions, your choices, your very being carry weight. You can walk into a room and the atmosphere shifts. People lean in when you speak because your words aren't just words, they're invitations to something deeper. That's the power of being anointed. But here's the flip side. Not everyone knows what to do with that kind of presence. While some people will be inspired by you, others may feel intimidated or even threatened. They may misinterpret your confidence as arrogance, your calling as ambition, or your clarity as rigidity. In their eyes, your anointing becomes a mirror reflecting their insecurities, fears, or limitations. And that's where misunderstanding creeps in. You might find yourself asking, why do people see me this way? Why don't they understand my heart or my intentions? It's frustrating, isn't it? To feel like you're trying to build bridges only for others to see walls. But here's the thing, being misunderstood isn't necessarily a sign that you're doing something wrong. Often it's a sign that you're operating on a level not everyone is ready to engage with. I think about people throughout history who were anointed to bring about change. Leaders, innovators, and visionaries, people who were called to do things differently. They were magnified, their work couldn't be ignored. But they were also misunderstood, criticized, and even rejected. Why? Because their purpose was too big to fit into the conventional molds of their time. When you're dangerously anointed, you often feel like you live in a paradox. On one hand, people put you on a pedestal, expecting you to have all the answers, to always be perfect, to never falter. On the other hand, those same people may misunderstand your struggles, your humanity, or your unique way of carrying out your mission. It's as if they see the light shining through you but can't comprehend the source or the cost. This dual experience can feel isolating. You may find yourself walking a lonely path, trying to bridge the gap between how others perceive you and who you truly are. But let me remind you of this: you were never called to be understood by everyone. You were called to be faithful to your purpose. So how do you navigate this tension? Stay when you are dangerously anointed, resistance will find you. It's almost inevitable. This isn't because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something right. The moment you step into your calling, into your purpose, you become a force that disrupts the status quo. And disruption, even when it's necessary, rarely comes without pushback. Let's start with the idea of resistance. Resistance comes in many forms. Sometimes it looks like outright opposition, criticism, rejection, or even betrayal from people you thought would support you. Other times it's more subtle, like self-doubt creeping in, unexpected obstacles popping up, or spiritual warfare that seems to attack you at your weakest points. Resistance isn't comfortable, it tests you. It pokes at your insecurities and tries to convince you to shrink back into a smaller version of yourself. And here's the tricky part: the closer you get to fulfilling your purpose, the louder and stronger that resistance often becomes. Why? Because the impact of your anointing threatens to shake foundations, whether they're personal, societal, or even spiritual. But here's where the beauty of resilience comes in. Resilience isn't just the ability to endure resistance, it's the ability to grow stronger because of it. Every time you face resistance, you're given a choice to let it defeat you or to let it refine you. And when you choose the latter, you tap into a power that not only helps you overcome the challenge, but equips you to face the next one with even greater strength. Think about a seed planted in the soil. It's buried in darkness, surrounded by pressure, and has to push through layers of earth. To break through, to be dangerously anointed, is to carry a sacred burden. It's an honor, but it's also a weight, a responsibility that shapes how you live, love, and lead. The burden doesn't diminish your worth. In fact, it affirms it. But make no mistake, it's not a light load. A sacred burden is the calling that whispers to you in the quiet moments and shouts at you when you try to ignore it. It's that undeniable pull to step into something greater than yourself, to live for a purpose that transcends personal gain. It's sacred because it's tied to your unique anointing, a gift given to you, not for you to hoard, but for you to steward and share with the world. But let's be real, carrying this burden is not without challenges. The weight of responsibility. When you carry a sacred burden, you feel the gravity of your actions and decisions. You're acutely aware that your choices matter not just for you, but for the people, communities, or causes you're called to serve. You often find yourself thinking, what if I mess this up? What if I'm not enough? This responsibility can feel overwhelming, especially on days when you're tired. discouraged, or unsure of your next step. The loneliness of the path. The path of the dangerously anointed is often a lonely one. Not everyone will understand the weight you carry, and some may even judge you for it. They might see the results of your work, the success, the influence, the impact, but they won't see the tears, the sacrifices, or the private battles you fought along the way. Carrying a sacred burden means walking a path that few can truly walk with you. The tension between gratitude and struggle. There's a strange duality in carrying a sacred burden. On one hand, you feel deeply honored to be one of the most powerful signs of being dangerously anointed is the unshakable courage to be unapologetically yourself. When you step into your anointing, you no longer shrink to fit into spaces that were never meant to contain you. You begin to own your voice, your story, and your unique purpose, no matter how much it deviates from what others expect or understand. But let's be honest, getting to this place isn't easy. Society is quick to tell us who we should be. From the moment we're born, we're handed rules, roles, and expectations, most of which were never designed with our individuality in mind. For someone who is anointed, these expectations feel especially restrictive because your calling often requires you to stand out, not fit in. The journey to authenticity. Being unapologetically you is not a decision you make once, it's a journey you commit to every day. It means peeling back the layers of who the world told you to be so you can step into who you truly are. It's not about rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It's about alignment, living in harmony with the truth of your identity and purpose. And here's the thing, the world needs the real you, not the version of you that's been polished and edited to make others comfortable, not the version that plays small to avoid standing out. The real you, messy, bold, imperfect, and utterly irreplaceable, is what will leave a lasting impact. The cost of being unapologetically you. Living authentically isn't without its costs. When you refuse to apologize for being who you are, some people won't understand. They may label you as difficult, arrogant, or unrelatable. Others may try to silence you, mold you, or make you question your worth. But here's what you need to remember: their discomfort with your authenticity is not your responsibility. You were not anointed to make everyone comfortable. You were anointed to fulfill a purpose that is bigger than their opinions. The power of owning your anointing. When you embrace being unapologetically you, you unleash a power that can't be ignored. You no longer seek validation from external sources because you know who you are and whose you are. Your confidence isn't arrogance, it's alignment. Your boldness isn't recklessness, it's faith. This authenticity allows you to inspire others in ways you might not even realize. When people see you showing up fully as yourself, it gives them permission to do the same. Your courage becomes contagious. Your light encourages others to shine. Navigating the balance. Being unapologetically you doesn't mean being inflexible or disregarding others. It's about balancing authenticity with humility. It's about knowing when to stand firm in your convictions and when to extend grace. The beauty of being dangerously anointed is that your authenticity can coexist with empathy and kindness. A final truth. To be unapologetically you is to honor the anointing on your life. It's a declaration that you are done living in fear, done apologizing for your existence, and done editing your brilliance to make others more comfortable. It's a decision to show up, to speak up, and to live fully in alignment with your calling. In the end, authenticity isn't just about being true to yourself, it's about being true to the one who anointed you. And when you live unapologetically in that truth, there is no limit to the impact you can make. In closing. Let me remind you of this: being dangerously anointed is not about perfection, it's about purpose. It's about embracing the challenges, the weight, and the responsibility of your calling with courage and faith. Yes, it's hard to step into a space where you're magnified but misunderstood. It's tough to carry a sacred burden that few can fully comprehend. It's exhausting to face resistance at every turn. But through it all, you are being refined, strengthened, and prepared for something greater than you can imagine. The world needs people who are willing to challenge comfort zones, who can carry the tension of being both celebrated and criticized, and who have the resilience to keep going when the road gets rough. The world needs you. So here's my charge to you: don't run from your anointing. Don't shrink to make others feel comfortable. Don't let resistance make you question your worth. Instead, step boldly into your purpose. Embrace every part of your journey, the good, the hard, the lonely, and the triumphant. Because when you live fully in your anointing, unapologetically and fearlessly, you won't just change your life. You'll change the lives of everyone around you. Thank you.